Welcome to Marketing Made, where we share real and relevant growth strategies specifically for style-led brands. I'm your host, Madeline, and I'm a marketing agency owner too, who has real experience in exactly what we're talking about today. So you might have seen the title, Why Jewelry Ads Aren't Specifically About Jewelry. And essentially that's what we're going to dive into today. And I'm actually going to go through the creative framework that you need to apply, which you maybe not be thinking about.
You know, I was sitting chatting with that person afterwards and
So let's talk about jewelry ads specifically. Let's be honest, a lot of them do look the same. If you listened to my episode last week, we spoke about campaign shoots. And this is the same with jewelry brands. We may have a beautiful model, great lighting, and of course, a beautiful product. But when we pop them into the ad account, some convert, but some don't. It's because the ads are selling the product. But wait, Maddie, aren't we trying to sell the actual product? Well, yeah, we are. But when it comes to jewelry, it's more than the product. Jewelry actually sits in a completely different category of consumer psychology. It isn't a problem solution purchase. It's a meaning purchase. So we're going to break down exactly what this means and how you can build a framework around this and how we structure it within our own agency as well. So let's talk about problem-driven products. These are really easy. To be honest, I find them easier to advertise. Think about your skincare products. You've got acne products, maybe sleep supplements, really weight loss supplements, cleaning products. The structure of these ads is a little bit simpler. You've got a problem, you've got a solution, and you've got an outcome. Example, I had terrible acne, insert solution, insert result. This works because the avatar already has this problem. They can identify it clearly in the ad because if they have acne, they see an ad for acne, of course, they're going to watch the ad. The ad just simply activates what the consumer is already thinking. Now, desire-driven products, and this is where jewelry sits, they don't actually solve a specific problem. They trigger identity, emotion, meaning, and aspiration. Honestly, this is bloody harder to sell. Because if you have a problem and you need to fix it, you're more likely to spend money. So it's really hard with desire-driven products to obviously sell. So we really need to pull on those points that I've just discussed here. The purchase is really about how the buyer feels about themselves. So the ad structure must change from problem, solution, outcome to identity, symbolism, emotional moment, and then here's my product. This is the desire gap framework. And it's really where jewelry brands need to be sitting in. Okay, so we've spoken about that jewelry brands typically advertise like fashion brands, or honestly worse, I've seen ad accounts where we're treating the ad account like a catalogue. And that's not wrong as such. Of course, you know, old school marketing, you would receive a catalogue from a jewelry brand within your like post box. And this is how you used to buy products. But now consumers are becoming, I guess, more savvier. They're wanting more from their brands. So we need to stir away from just talking about our product features, our materials, our price. And really, I hate when I see ads that say like 14 karat gold necklace, limited stock, buy my jewelry. This doesn't really talk about why the consumer should care about your specific product that you're selling. And really, why you'll struggle to sell it, especially in a competition of so many other jewelry brands. Jewelry purchases rarely start with someone going, I need a necklace. They begin with a moment or emotion or an occasion. Examples could be, I just had a baby, I finally got that promotion, it's my bridal shower coming up, I just got engaged, I want to celebrate myself, which is typically why I buy a lot of the things I buy. And this becomes a symbol of that specific moment. So we need to capture that moment. So let's talk about, I think I've got 5 primary psychological triggers that people buy jewelry brands. So let's dive into them, and this will help you, I guess, unlock how you can think about when you're setting up your campaigns. What do those ad sets look like specifically? So one is self-reward. I think I spoke about this just before. I'm all about self-reward. I will buy myself a piece of jewelry or clothing whenever I feel like I need to spoil myself a little bit. And this could be around promotion. course, coming with more money, maybe a personal milestone, some sort of independence. So if we think about hooks for this category, this could be, I bought this ring the day I got promoted. Simple. This jewelry represents achievement. So this could be a specific ad set that you focus on within your campaign. How does my jewelry help people represent the achievement in their life? Think about that. Think about that when you're laying out your creative strategy. Let's talk about identity signaling. Now, jewelry is probably one of the strongest identity markers humans use. If you think about your values, your beliefs, your religion, your aesthetic identity, typically this can relate to the pieces that people buy in your jewelry collection. So if you had a collection, maybe you could pull on symbolic rings, astrology jewelry, spiritual pendants. We're actually working with a jewelry brand right now that is bringing out charms of their pets. There you go. This becomes a piece of the person's identity. So if your jewelry does fall into that, how can you create content around that speaks to the person's identity? And it can be, like I said, around that aesthetic identity. Are you a clean girl? Are you a boss babe? So let's talk about number 3, relationship symbolism. So historically, the largest jewelry category, let's be honest, is all around engagement, anniversary, push presents. Yes, you need that tennis bracelet, but the emotional angle matters more than the product. So examples of hooks could be around, my husband gave me this necklace after our daughter was born. Push present. The jewelry represents the relationship more than the jewelry itself. Number 4 is milestone markers. So it does have similarities to the other ones that I've spoken about, but it could be around life transitions. So graduation gifts, personal breakthroughs, divorce. Again, it could be around childbirth. But I want you to really think about milestone occasions here. This can even really be about Mother's Day or Father's Day. Those categories as well would really sit here. Your birthday as well, 30th birthday, 50th birthday. These are big milestones as well. So it could be like, I bought this necklace the day I turned 30, or my partner bought me this bracelet on my 50th birthday. It represents a new chapter in someone's life. Maybe you bought this necklace because you left your marriage. Definitely a new chapter in your life. Then we have category number 5, which is all around legacy and memory. So jewelry is often purchased with the intention of it being passed down. So you would see comments or, advertising around heirloom pieces, mother-daughter jewelry. So really, if your jewelry plays on this, then you should definitely capture this within your campaigns. And this is all around generational meaning. So if you are a brand where maybe your price point is a little bit higher and it is a piece that is an investment that they could pass down to their daughters, play on that. Or if you have a category, we're working with a jewelry brand right now where we have pearl bracelets. And we are introducing our smaller versions for daughters. And we're going to play on that mother and daughter relationship within that advertising. We're not going to be saying, hey, we've got a pearl bracelet that's small enough to fit a child's wrist. That's not how we would advertise it. We would advertise around that moment of legacy and creating that movement and that generational meaning. So I spoke at the beginning of the episode around my creative framework around this. So when we're looking at our ads for jewelry brands, there's 4 components I want you to be thinking about. What is the clear benefit to the consumer? What is the positioning? So we spoke about those 4 levers up the top. Where are we positioning it? In what kind of category? Are we pulling on an emotional trigger? And emotional trigger doesn't always, I feel like people get really confused when I say emotional trigger. It can be an emotion of like aesthetic as well. It doesn't have to be an emotional, like a sad moment, but how are we making the consumer feel? It can be positive, negative. It could be a lot of different things here. And then what clarity are we providing in our advertising? So let's go through exactly each 4 here and talk a little bit more about them so you can understand. So let's talk about benefit. We're not talking about functional benefits here. So we're not talking about, that 14 karat gold jewelry. We're not talking about the features that would have a benefit to the consumer. We're going through the emotional benefit. And we've spoken about this before, just what we touched upon. This necklace reminds me of XYZ. This bracelet was when I XYZ feeling. You really want to pull back the moment to why they purchased it. Positioning. What does the piece represent? Like we mentioned before, jewelry designed to celebrate personal milestones. Can we pull on that? Jewelry designed to represent your favorite fur baby. That's how we're positioning it with this new jewelry client that we have. Emotional trigger, the story behind the purchase. I bought this because my fur baby passed away, or I bought this after my divorce, or I bought this to symbolize my love for XYZ. I bought this to have a meaningful connection with my daughter. This is pulling on that emotional trigger and what we want to have in our advertising as well. Now, of course, we want to have clarity, what the product is and how to get it. And this is where we want to have that product reveal. It's minimal, but it's clear and it's straight to the point. Of course, we have to talk about the product. So let's go through the final ad structure. You will have your hook, which could be your specific moment, your identity shift, you would have your emotional story, your symbolism, and then you would have your product reveal. So it's really different to that problem solution where you have problem, here is my product, here is the outcome, essentially. We're playing a bit more on those other aspects of identity shift, emotional story, symbolism, and then, of course, here's my product. So I'm going to give you a few examples. I'm really playing on this divorce aspect here. Imagine that you bought a specific ring after your divorce. I'm going really extreme here. You could have a hook that is like, I bought this ring the day I finalized my divorce. Storyline could be around, for 12 years, I wore a ring that represented someone else. Now I wear one that represents me. Product reveal. That is a way of course, you expand upon that, but to give you a real clear understanding of how the ad structure would then work. Let's think about a woman who got recently promoted and maybe she bought herself an expensive necklace. And the hook could be around my first 6-figure year. I promised myself if I ever made it to this X amount of revenue or this salary, I'd buy myself something that reminded me of it. Here's my product reveal. Honestly, this is something I have in my head as well. I've got a gift that I want when I hit a specific revenue target and I'm going to buy it. So there, again, that's me as a consumer. The minute I have this specific milestone, I'm going to buy something that represents that moment in time. Let's talk about motherhood necklace. For example, my daughter was born at 5 a.m. on the 11th of the 3rd. And this necklace reminds me of her birthstone. Or this necklace reminds me of the moment she was born because of her birthstone. We're showcasing the product here. So again, it all has moments of time that people want to remember. It's not just about the jewelry itself. And then, you may have jewelry pieces. We've worked with a few brands where there's like a real spiritual meaning behind it. It can be through a specific symbol. We've had symbol rings. We've had symbol necklaces. We actually worked with a beautiful Aboriginal artist who made necklaces and pendants that had Aboriginal symbols on there. And of course, to that specific group of individuals, it really had a strong meaning. So this pendant, for example, represents protection or represents something in the spiritual meaning that is obviously only relevant to that individual and has a specific feeling towards them as well. Okay, so if you listen to my last week's episode, we spoke about how, fashion brands really don't want to be relying just on their campaign shoots and their studio photography or product-only ads. You need to think about how can I create a pipeline of stories, essentially. And this comes through a few different avenues. Creators obviously are the easiest because you can have a bit more of that controlled environment where you can get them to potentially create a content piece where there is a bit of a script or a bit of an outline for the advertising that you want to do. Now, customers is one, which is great. Like we work with a bridal brand right now. And of course, after a bride has her wedding, we get great pieces of visual content. We get a lot of statics, we get video content, and we normally get like a written review or if they're willing to as well, a verbal review face to camera where we can overlay the bride's wedding day. Now, this is super strong because of course we're a bridal brand. It can then showcase a moment in time. It showcases the customer wearing the pieces and it creates that social proof and creates that visual moment in the consumer's mind. Founder stories, I think this is another underutilized one in the jewelry category. Like just talking about why you started the brand and maybe specifically the feelings you wanted your customers to have is really quite powerful. As mentioned, when we worked with that Aboriginal artist, she really spoke about why she chose those specific symbols and how she kind of comes up with the artistry for those pendants. And whenever she does those ads where it's just her visually showcasing her making them and then it's her voiceover because she doesn't want to show her face, they always outperform just showing a static of the specific product. Life moments. So if you are going to do, say, a bit of a shoot, rather than just showing like product photography, can you show those life moments? So if it's a Valentine's Day gift, can you get a partner giving it to his girlfriend? Or if it was someone, for example, just who had a baby, could we maybe bring a baby in and like we can just kind of see it within the ad and then she's wearing the birthstone. So in those shoots, if we are going to go for those aesthetic moments, how can we visually capture those life moments in that aesthetic content as well? Now, when you have this creates infinite ad angles for you. So one necklace, rather than just saying, here's my necklace, you could have a breakup story, you could have a promotion story, you can have a motherhood story, you could have a self-love story, you could have a friendship gift story, you could have a relationship story. The product stays the same, but you are changing the meaning, which, if you listen to last week's episode, opens up creative diversification. You've got one product, so many different meanings that you can create infinite amount of ads. That this is truly how you scale. It's not about just scaling with budget. It's about scaling with different messaging and different angles and different micro avatars. And I'm hoping that this has given you enough insight into understanding how you would position jewelry in so many different ways that it would open up so many different scaling opportunities for you. So let's roll back. What is the biggest mistake jewelry brands are making is thinking they sell jewelry. They don't. They sell identity, they sell memories, they sell milestones, they sell meaning. Jewelry brands that make ads that feel personal are the ones that will unlock true community and true scalability as well. So I want you to leave this episode understanding the creative framework that we spoke about and how you can layer upon those different structures that I outlined. And then I want you to think about how can I sell more than just a product, but more about how can I sell emotion that a consumer can wear. That is the end of this episode. I hope you have found it informative. Of course, if you have any questions or want to talk about this further, you can always jump into my Instagram DM. I will pop that in the show notes and we can chat about it more. Otherwise, I will chat to you next week.